Ashley, I'm about to say a sentence to you that I never imagined would be something that I could say with truthfulness about myself.
Okay.
But this is true. Are you ready for this?
I'm ready.
Taylor Swift cost me money this week.
How?
I realized nobody is going to have context. Okay, so here's what happened. You probably didn't even notice it because I hadn't noticed it until literally like last night or the night before. There was a thread posted in our Facebook group, which, by the way, you can find us on Facebook. There's a link in the show notes if you're interested in that. We think we're one of the few wonderful places in Meta's universe.
A bright spot of the internet, y'all.
1,300 or so folks there hanging out and being cool generally. Somebody made a post, though, and they referenced the new Taylor Swift album, and they made a couple of notes about it. They had not enjoyed it nearly as much as they had expected to, and made some jokes referencing the Vampire Lestat and our TV series and Armand and Louise' relationship being, a beige pillow. Anyway, I thought it was funny. I laughed at the post and I didn't think anything else about it. I haven't listened to the album yet. I like Taylor Swift, but frankly, I don't listen to that much music. So especially new music. So anyway, I forgot all about it. I got a message from a patron saying that they were very upset about the thread. And in particular, someone named Ashley had, in their opinion, disparaged them in the comments, and they hoped it wasn't you, but they were removing their support from our Patreon.
Oh, no!
Et cetera, et cetera. Yeah. And so I apologized and I said, hey, first of all, it wasn't Ashley. I went and looked at the comments real quick. Neither one of us had commented on the thread at all. It was a different Ashley in our group who also is a very conscientious person and like a good commenter and like not a jerk or a bully. I read through the thread. I didn't really feel like anything was out of line, but here's my broad points about this. Art is subjective. In this case, the original commenter and the original poster, I should say, and several of the commenters had discussed some of the critiques that have come out about this album in particular and other pieces of Taylor's music over time, that she uses metaphors and language that has a racist, biased undertone, as effectively every white person in the Western world does from time to time, right? I don't know about you, Ashley. I used to say eeny, meeny, miny, mo all the time because I didn't know where it came from or what it, the danger that it originally posed, right? Okay.
Right.
So
we all did. Like, let's be real. All of us did.
Yeah, exactly. Right. We used to say lots of words that we don't say today, right? Everybody, as a general rule, everybody did. We when you know better, you do better. Anyway, in this case, that was the comment that had caused reaction and angst and anger. Taylor's not racist and none of this is racist and you're crazy for noticing these things. And there was some discussion and some anger and some back and forth in the comments. I don't know how I
missed this.
That got a little bit out of hand, or at least got taken out of context. Right. So here's the point that I wanted to make, though. If you take in a piece of art and you think to yourself, these are interesting metaphors, or this is an interesting piece of language that's being used, or a turn of phrase that I think maybe has this racist aspersion or this misogynist aspersion or whatever, that doesn't mean the original stater did that consciously or subconsciously, right? Because you hear or notice or read into a piece of Taylor's artwork something racist or misogynist or whatever, that doesn't mean that Taylor meant it or so even subconsciously meant it. Sometimes we can just take a piece of art in a way. Likewise, I want to say, because something that is speaking to those sorts of angles doesn't particularly affect you or move you, that doesn't make you not an ally or a racist, right? I'm going to throw my wife under the bus here for a minute because I asked her permission. Kelly didn't really care for Sinners, right? One of our other listeners made a comment about the same lines. When I used Kelly as an example, they said, hey, I agree with Kelly. Sinners didn't really hit for me. You guys talked about what an amazing piece it was. I was all hyped up. I didn't really get it when I watched it. It's fine, but it wasn't the greatest movie of the year for me. Okay, that doesn't make them racist. It doesn't make them dumb either.
No.
It doesn't make you wrong, though, or evil, because you do hear those sorts of things in art and ask, what does it mean? And does anybody else notice this? And did you also read this into it? Art is for discussion. Art is subjective. I am sorry if anybody got their feathers ruffled. I
Well,
apologize to that patron that wanted to leave, and I hope you're happier now without being in the Facebook group and without the support on Patreon.
my gosh.
But I got a message from the original poster in the Facebook group too, and they were like, "Hey, did I do something wrong? And I'm so sorry. And do you want to delete it?" I was like, "No."
No, well, the other thing, you don't
You're
delete
fine.
things like that because people put emotional labor into it, explaining the fucking like thing behind it. And I think we also have to remember that criticism isn't necessarily an attack. You know,
No.
like criticism.
It's a
isn't
discussion.
An attack. It's like,
It's a give and take.
And the thing is, when it comes to racial bias, we need to listen to people that don't look like us. Like, we have to listen to our friends that do not look like Joel and I when it comes to those things. Because even if you don't read it like that or see it like that, another perspective that has a totally different set of eyes than you do may see it in a completely different way. And it doesn't mean you should hate that song now. It just means you should have, that gives you an extra layer of perspective thinking about our human fucking language. Because let's be real, we are thousands of years into oppressing people that don't look like us. So our language reflects it, y'all. It's okay. It's not, it's not okay, but we need to be aware of it. Like, we need to be aware of it so we can make adjustments as we go on.
Master-slave switches. Master and slave switches in electronics. Male and female plugs. This is simple language.
Master bedroom, master suites and houses.
Yes, master suites and houses. Exactly.
No,
all of this is stuff
that was an issue like 2 years ago. I was like, ugh, you know, like, and I do try to pay attention to those things. Like, I quit using. I don't say let's have a powwow. I don't say low men on the totem pole. Like, I removed.
I try not to say spirit animal.
Yeah, I don't say that anymore. I try to remove things from my language that when it is brought up to me, you know.
I'm also human. Human. Listen, when my friends who have made transitions with naming or with identity, I have done the wrong name, right? I have said the wrong pronoun and not meant it and apologized for it and worked hard to correct it the next time, right? Nobody is perfect. Nobody expects anybody else to be perfect, but it's also art is meant to be discussed is my point. That's my broader point. And I do want to move on, but I thought it was funny because it is true. Taylor Swift cost me money this week.
Apparently cost me money this week. I didn't even know.
Just a little bit. Just a little bit.
I don't even listen to Taylor. Now I like her. I think she's a hoot, but Not everything's for me too. That's another thing to remember. Not everything's for you.
Welcome to the Articulate Coven, the original, unofficial fan podcast and community for Anne Rice's Immortal Universe, The Vampire Chronicles, Lives of the Mayfair Witches, and the Immortal Universe TV series from AMC and AMC+. The Articulate Coven is Ashley and Joel, but it's supported by listeners just like you. Find out more at articulatecoven.com/join. No, listen, I like some of her songs literally bring me to tears. Here's one that's weird. I can't listen to you better calm down or please calm down or whatever the one about gay rights. Like, I love that song. It's so good. But in the middle of the chorus, I literally get filled up every time I listen to it. I get a little misty every time I listen to it. And it's not like the greatest song ever written. It's a fun song that has a good message that moves me personally. That's art, y'all. That's art. All right. We are the Articulate Coven. Look at that. Art right there at the beginning of our name. I'm Joel.
I'm Ashley.
And we are your hosts. We're the Articulate Coven. We are a podcast about the Immortal Universe from Anne Rice, the Lives of the Mayfair Witches, the Vampire Chronicles, and all the TV series from AMC and AMC+. So much good stuff happening right now.
Very quickly upcoming Talamasca.
boy, it's like right on us. With this episode in particular, we're going to be talking about Anne Rice's biography a little bit. We're going to walk through her life, and in particular through her works, her written works, and the different phases of her career. But before that, we do have to talk a little bit about the news. We're going to do more about New York Comic Con because there was a lot. We're going to react to the panel.
Oh, there's been so much. They were very generous. They were generous, Joel.
They really were. Look, we complained for so long about not having that trailer where we react to the bootleg footage. They gave us a full actual trailer with some new stuff in it too. We're going to do a full reaction to that. That's coming soon. So watch for that on our YouTube channel. Yeah. But right now, the news that I want to talk about in this episode, because we just have to discuss it a little bit. We have a Queen of the Damned, other than our beloved Nancy Ward, obviously. But in the show, Akasha is going to be played by Sheila Atim. I believe I'm saying that last name right, or Atim, Atim, excuse me. I was not familiar with this actress, but
I was not either. She's done a
turns out she's in a lot
of theater in particular. She's also a composer and like a playwright. She is very like cross-trained, y'all. That's really fucking cool.
Singer, composer, playwright, Ugandan British actress. So first of all, let's talk a little 6 Degrees of Separation. She's worked with Sam Reed before. Yes. She and Sam Reed were in a performance of, or a production, I should say, of the Bob Dylan musical Girl from the North Country, which I was not familiar with. I vaguely remembered that there was a Bob Dylan musical, but I didn't really know anything about it. But I looked this up. So this was in 2017, I think, was their production. They were. Awesome. This was the original production of the show. Sheila won a Laurence Olivier Award for her performance. She played Mary Ann, an adopted pregnant daughter in the Lane family. She won for Best Supporting Actress in a Musical. Sam Reed played Gene Lane, the son of the guest house owners, who is an aspiring writer struggling with alcoholism. He was also part of the original cast. And so it premiered at the Old Vic in 2017 and then transferred to the West End. Music and lyrics by Bob Dylan, book by Connor McPherson. So there you go. They've worked together. Here's a little bit of more 6 Degrees of Separation that I totally would have missed, but somebody in our Facebook group pointed out. Sheila is also in the upcoming movie Dust Bunny. Dust Bunny is a weird little movie about an 8-year-old girl who asks her scheming neighbor for help in killing the monster under her bed that she thinks ate her family. That
sounds so creepy. I love that. Ooh.
Guess who the next door neighbor is that helps her?
Who?
Mads Mikkelsen.
Delicioso.
So Sheila has worked with our favorite Hannibal as well. And here's the one that I am kind of crazy that I missed or didn't know her. She was in Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness.
Right.
She played a character called Sarah Wolf. It's a small role in the movie. She actually seems to have some stuff that was cut. She was supposed to be a love interest for Wong. In the comics,
I love Wong.
I do too. In the comics, she is like a secretary, a personal assistant to Doctor Strange, and a love interest of Wong. But in the film, she's another one of the magical practitioners. She's a member of their order, and she originally had some scenes that implied at least a love interest with Wong, but those were sort of left on the cutting room floor as that film was trimmed. She also, though, voiced that character in the recently released Marvel Zombies on Disney Plus that we mentioned last week.
Y'all, it's so fun.
There you go.
I highly recommend.
First of all, just
gorgeous.
Yes.
So androgynous. Yeah. Like, got a real, like, Grace Jones kind of vibe.
Yeah. Yes. I sort of said Grace Slick. Yes, Grace Jones is exactly what I meant. Grace Jones.
Grace Jones vibe. Like, real big time. Like,
ethereal.
Yeah.
Regal. She's got an air about her. Like, literally just physical presence. She's got that model look. All of which fits Akasha so perfectly.
Dark skinned, beautiful, dark skin. I'm so excited to see that. Yeah. Just because it's nice to see dark women represented, you know. We see a lot more of our lighter skin brown sisters than the really dark gals. So I appreciate that too.
She's 34 years old. She's born in 1991. So she's just the right age, I think. And as we talked about with Sam Reed's casting and Jacob's casting, the look will stay very similar for a decade here at least, right? So you can do a lot with her.
Yeah. Yeah. She's also, I love that she's got a lot of theater background. I really enjoy watching a good theater actor in this show in particular.
Yeah.
Like our Santiago has got a huge theater background, and he was literally like my favorite slice of last season. I loved him.
Well, and Rollins pulled so much from the theater world generally. That's where he's pulling so many of his writers from, right? And the other thing that I immediately think about is like, okay, this is a singer and a composer. Are they gonna use that in her scenes with Lestat this season or in the future?
Could that be
right?
A thing? Like, yeah, absolutely.
I feel like you almost gotta.
And even if they don't, just having like that awareness of music and that understanding of music, knowing that it was such an important part of her awakening. I like that they cast somebody that has that sort of like knowledge. Apologies, my dogs are going to be barking like crazy. It's the state fair this week, and that is just down the street from my house. So people are walking.
Don't even worry about it. We'll do our best to process it when we can. But I just realized, I think literally there's someone like chainsawing something in my front yard or running a lawnmower on something. Yeah. I don't know. Anyway, so lots of interesting noises this Saturday as we record.
Saturday afternoon.
So y'all, there is more news. There's a few other casting announcements, smaller casting announcements that have come out. There's a few things from the trailer that we want to discuss, but that's all going to wait for a full discussion of the trailer and the panel. We'll do that for you in the future. We've also got a lot of great feedback that I'd like to get to, but we're going to squeeze some of that into the next episode too, because I don't know how long this discussion of Anne is going to take. So I want to get right to it. She is such an interesting figure. Her life is so interesting, I think, for a writer, and has parallels with both you and me in different ways.
Yeah.
And the phases and stages of her career are really, really interesting. So I want to start breaking them down.
I just love how full force she lived life, you know, like in whatever phase, whatever she was feeling, she was really feeling it. You know what I mean? Like,
boy,
she went for it hard, you know.
No half measures.
If she was going to hate God, she was going to fucking hate God. And if she was going to find God again, she was going to really find God again, you know.
So we're talking about Howard Allen Francis O'Brien, born October 4th, 1941, in New Orleans, and raised up in the Irish Channel specifically. Let's talk about that name for a second. So she was quoted. Different people talked to her about it at different times, but here's a good quote. This is on her Wikipedia. Well, my birth name is Howard Allen because apparently my mother thought it was a good idea to name me Howard. My father's name was Howard. She wanted to name me after him, and she thought it was a very interesting thing to do. She was a bit of a bohemian, a bit of a mad woman, a bit of a genius, and a great deal of a great teacher. She had an idea that naming a woman Howard was going to give that woman an unusual advantage in the world. What's so interesting, Ashley, is and we've talked about her a lot on the show. Let's talk about her for a minute. Old J.K. Rowling herself. Why does she go by her fucking initials on the side of those books, Ash?
Right, because it's easier to get published as a man than a woman.
It is really interesting to me that she never attempted publishing as Howard O'Brien or Howard Rice or something, you know? Now, she changed the name herself when she started going to school. Basically, she went to school and told her teacher that her name was Anne. And so they started calling her Anne, and her family was like, okay, fine, then I guess.
You're Anne now.
Yeah. But like she just made that choice on her own because she didn't want to be Howard.
Well, I'm sorry. I just can't blame her. Howard.
No, Howard.
Brett has an Uncle Howard, and that name suits him. But I can't imagine, like, looking at a little baby girl, a sweet little baby girl, and thinking, Howard. But I also kind of associate Howard with the duck, and then that's a whole other complication.
So she's the second of four daughters of two Irish Catholic parents. Howard O'Brien and Catherine K. Allen O'Brien. Her dad was a naval veteran of World War II and a lifelong resident in New Orleans. He worked in the post office, and he wrote one novel, which he wrote for Alice, Anne's sister, and Anne when they were little. It was called The Impulsive Imp, and it was published posthumously by Anne, I believe. She got that published after he died.
That'd be
older sister, right? Her older sister, Alice Borchardt, or Borchardt, I believe is actually how you pronounce the name. She's also an author. She became an author, a published author later in life. She writes fantasy and historical romance novels. And in particular, I think Alice had written quite a few werewolf books. I think she's got like a whole series, or maybe even a couple of series that feature werewolves. Because for the longest time, Anne had people would ask her, will you ever write about werewolves? And she had said, no, that's my sister's domain, really. Eventually, she would write The Wolf Gift, which we'll talk about later on. So she was raised in the Irish Channel. This is like low income, blue collar, like super blue collar neighborhood. These are dock workers, right? These are factory workers and their families.
Manual laborers, you know. Like,
yeah. I mean, she said it was widely considered the Catholic ghetto. This is where the poor Catholics lived, you know? So her mother had not just a bohemian style, she had an alcohol problem, and she sank deeper and deeper into alcoholism when Anne was very young. And her mother died in 1949, actually.
She was like, what, 8 then?
Yeah, she was really very young. Yeah, very young. Now, they stayed in the home for a few more years until 1956, and then they moved to St. Charles Avenue. It was a former rectory, a convent, and a school owned by the parish. And Anne Rice describes this time St. Alphonsus School. It's a Catholic institution. She says it was like Wuthering Heights or something. It was like a Dickens novel. She hated it and longed to escape it. Her dad gets married again. They move to Texas. She finishes up high school in Texas, actually. And that's where she meets Stan Rice. I had forgotten until I started doing the research for this episode that Stan was a high school sweetheart, effectively. Like, they reconnected late in their college careers.
Yeah,
but they met each other in high school.
College. Oh, that's so
me too.
Sweet. In my brain, they were a college thing.
All right, so she's in Texas. They meet at Richardson High School in a journalism class was where they met.
Aww.
She graduates in 1959, and then she goes for 1 year to Texas Women's University in Denton, Texas, and then transferred to North Texas State College for her second year. She dropped out because she ran out of money, basically, and she couldn't really find employment. She ends up moving to San Francisco, and she persuades a former roommate of hers from Texas Women's, Jenny Mathis, to move out there with her. They're living in the Haight-Ashbury, even though Anne is still this conservative little Catholic girl, basically. And they end up taking classes at University of San Francisco, an all-male Jesuit school that allowed women to take classes at night. She goes home to Texas on an Easter vacation and connects with Stan. And then Stan comes for like a week-long visit during that next summer break. And then he sends her a special delivery letter asking her to marry him. And they end up getting married on October 14th, 1961 in Denton, Texas, right after she turns 20. And I'd forgotten this too. He had not quite turned 19 yet. He was like 2 or 3 weeks away from his 19th birthday. He was a year younger than she was.
Sweethearts.
They really were. They really were.
Yeah.
And it's such an interesting relationship because Stan was, even as a teenager, an atheist. He was not religious and didn't have any religious background, was very logical focused and very artsy. And Anne comes from this dogmatic, I mean, literally, she talks about it all the time, but ingesting the blood of Christ as a real experience, as a physical experience every week, you know?
And it's so, like, that is so strange for me to wrap my head around. I mean, for like, I'm just like, I can't understand that level of cosplay, I guess.
It It's interesting to me how the two of them connected on such an elemental level, which they clearly did. You hear either one of them, you read anything that either one of them said about the other, and it is this
soulmates, like
absolutely soulmates.
Soulmates,
even irregardless of, and we've talked about this many times, like Anne has talked about her lack of gender identity, really. Like she never felt herself as a woman really in any way, and yet
maybe because her name was Howard.
I mean, maybe so, honestly, but there was always this like just absolutely magnetic connection to Stan in particular, and they orbited each other in a way that I was always honestly jealous and
you
fond
can tell how inspired by him she is too. His poetry, his work inspires her so much. It's in the intros to so many of the books. She uses little snippets of pieces of his. And it was enough to make me go read some of his poetry. I mean, it's kind of wild and weird and very interesting visuals in it. You know, it's no wonder those two found each other, you know, and good on them for finding each other in Denton fucking Texas. Like,
right.
Can you imagine? No offense. I've been to Denton, Texas, and I just don't think those two people are likely to exist at the same time in Denton, Texas. I'm very happy for them.
I'm sure Christopher thinks, like, what are the odds that this all came together?
Man. Yeah.
So they marry.
Such an interesting person too. Like, of course he's such a unique individual because look at his parents.
So the two of them get married in 1961. Anne finishes her poli-sci degree from San Francisco State in 1964. And then their daughter, Michelle, who they nicknamed Mouse, was born on September 21st, my birthday, 1966. So Stan finishes his degree as well. And Anne is like, I'm going to go to graduate studies. I'm going to be a PhD candidate, et cetera, et cetera. She gets disillusioned because she's like, I didn't want to be a literature student. I wanted to be a writer.
I want to write. Yeah.
So I think I've got it written down here. Let's see. 1968, she writes the original short story version that becomes Interview with the Vampire. And she based a lot of her interpretations and what she was working on around her favorite monster movie, which is Dracula's Daughter, which we've covered before. These like very strong and androgynous characters that are enigmatic and very charismatic, and yet torn about their nature and what they have to do to survive.
So sympathetic monsters, you know, that's
and the original, if you go, you can find it online, I think, but that original version of the short story is very simplistic. It doesn't really have a lot in common at all with what ends up being Louis, the main character of the novel. But the crux of the idea is there in 1968. Now, she revisits it after Michelle falls ill and then ends up passing away. So I had to look this up, but her daughter, Michelle, was diagnosed with acute granulocytic leukemia in 1970. As this was while Anne was in a graduate program. She had said in an interview once that she had a prophetic dream months before Michelle became ill that her daughter was dying from something wrong with her blood. And then Michelle ends up succumbing to her illness and dies in 1972, shortly before she would have turned 6 years old. It is, incredibly tragic. Right here, though, I do want to put a plug. This is why St. Jude matters so much. Oh. Michelle is not that much older than Ashley and I, right? But in the, she was born in what did I say, 66? Yeah, 1966. Yeah. I'm born in 81.
79.
In those 15 years, those 14 years, 13 years, 15 years between her and us, St. Jude had changed the fucking game already on childhood leukemia.
Yeah.
And from the time we were children to now, again, like it is a revolution again. Yeah. The fact of the matter is that if anytime you hear a radiothon, y'all, like just go ahead and throw a few dollars St. Jude's way because they're genuinely doing the Lord's work.
I mean, really, really good. They're in Memphis. Yeah, aren't they in Memphis?
Yes, based in Memphis. The main one is, yeah.
I've driven past their campus so many times, and it's just incredible. They do incredible work. Childhood cancer is underfunded. Childhood cancer research is underfunded in this country, just like so many are. But
and it just got cut again, Ashley, in that big, beautiful bill, not to get political here. But
hashtag blessed.
Hashtag
pro-life, right?
Yeah, St. Jude doesn't charge the parent. They don't charge the patient. They don't charge the insurance companies. They don't charge for travel. They don't charge for family housing. They don't charge for food. They provide entertainment for the families and the children while they're on site. They provide all sorts of wonderful programs for children who are literally going to die and there's nothing they can do about it. There's all sorts of fantastic events and programs that those children get to do, and it's all provided free by donor dollars. Also, they share every bit of research that they get with other hospitals worldwide. So not just St. Jude patients, but every patient worldwide, not just children, but grown-ups too, can all benefit from that research and learning that they're doing. So there's my pitch. Michelle would have lived another 10 or 15 years later, and St. Jude would have been the reason why. And I guarantee you Anne would have said the same thing. Y'all give to your charities when you can, and you got a few dollars. All right.
Yep.
What happens, though, out of that tragedy, Ashley, is that Anne, first of all, becomes a heavy alcoholic. She became a big drinker and dove into desperation and doubt and despair, as you can imagine. The fact that she and Stan were able to stay together and pull through this and eventually have another son and then soberly commit themselves to not raising that son in an alcoholic household, I think is genuinely one of the great miracles of literature. Stephen King battled with drugs and with alcoholism as well.
Let's be real. Tabitha King is a saint. That woman is a saint. And I mean, his big relapse that he had happened after he got hit by that van and almost died.
Almost died, yeah.
So it's like, well, shit, but yeah, I think that, creatives have a lot of demons and
there's good stories down in that hole. There's good stories down in that hole. Like, that's the sad thing of it. It's true. Diamonds are made by pressure. There's no doubt about that. I'm not saying that you need to find those on your own to find good stories. You don't have to
suffer for your art. No.
No, you don't. It's not what we want.
But it happens a lot. A lot of artistic people. I think a lot of it has to do with like with Anne's case, not knowing how to cope with loss. I think a lot of it has to do with not knowing how to cope with failure or the fear of failure.
You're absolutely right. So after Michelle passes away, Anne picks this story back up. She invents the character of an immortal child in Claudia. She restructures Louis as a version of herself in her despair and doubt and questioning her place and existence in the world. Mourning. What is good and evil? What am I worth, etc.
A proxy for her grief.
Yeah. And it's no surprise to me, knowing that backstory, that when she revisits this world a few years later, she does so in a different form because she has worked through her grief and tragedy. It's not like she's left Michelle or those memories behind, but the person who was in the hole that's not there anymore. That wasn't Anne when she revisits this in the early 80s.
She has a rebirth as Lestat. She's in a different place, so she gets to have a rebirth as the version of herself she truly wants to be at that time. So
1976 is the release of Interview with the Vampire, and Ashley, it's kind of like a wet fart. Like, there's buzz about it, and the people that read it really get it and dig into it. And in some ways, like the Rocky Horror Show, like, it begins to slowly pick up a little steam as a cult following.
Right.
But the critics thought it was trash. And that was a big hit for Anne. It didn't sell that well to start with. And the combination of those two things drove her in a radically different direction for her next several books. So she, especially early on, she gave such a damn about being considered a serious author and like a author of literature.
Which is funny because she didn't want to be a student.
Yeah. Yeah. It is funny. Like,
respectfully, that's just funny to me. Like, you want to be considered this literary giant, but you didn't want to be a student of literature first.
She didn't want to be a literary. Well, she didn't want to like write articles about Dickens' work, right? You know,
right.
She didn't want to.
That's, you know.
Yeah. So she writes 2 novels in like a totally different direction that comes out in 1979 and 1982, respectively. The Feast of All Saints, which is about the free people of color in New Orleans, in and around New Orleans. That's been adapted into a Showtime miniseries, which we've discussed before. Well, we haven't talked about it at length, but we've mentioned it before. And then Cry to Heaven is the second historical novel from 1982. That one's about the castrati, these boys who were castrated to maintain their high-pitched perfect voices for these, I want to just quickly point out here, religious-based organizations and choirs. They were singing to God, so we got to cut their nuts off. Anyway, boy, I'm letting all my biases out today, aren't I? Actually.
Well, why do they have to flow right along side by side with Anne's?
But here's what happens. So she writes these 2 books and releases those. She's chasing legitimacy. She's chasing, applause from the critics and the New York Times and the others. What she found out was it didn't matter when she changed subjects. The critics weren't going to give her any attention anyway. They didn't give a shit about those 2 novels either. So in the background, while she's doing those 2 things, she starts writing some dirty books, Ashley.
Filthy.
So she released, The Claiming of Sleeping Beauty was the first one in 1983. Then she writes Exit to Eden in 1985 under a different pseudonym, Anne Rampling. She goes back to, she did The Claiming of Sleeping Beauty in 83, Beauty's Punishment in 84, and Beauty's Release in 85. All of those are as A. Anne Roquelaire. And then she also wrote in 85 Exit to Eden as Anne Rampling and Belinda in 86 as Anne Rampling. Okay.
Yeah.
Have you read any of the erotica? I'm trying to think how many of these I've read and what I've poked at.
I've read...
Poked at was the wrong thing to say there, wasn't it?
I did not even pick it up. I read the first Beauty book for sure. And I'm
fairly certain I've read that one too. Yeah, I know I've read Exit to Eden.
I feel like I read Belinda or I started it. Maybe I didn't finish it.
I'm fairly certain that I've never read Belinda, and I know that I've never read anything except maybe that first Sleeping Beauty book.
Not gonna lie, none of these really stick in my head as anything but porn.
Yeah, well, okay.
But that's just because they were because that's when I read them.
Yeah, we were reading these all at 12 and 13. So of course it was above our heads.
I don't remember the plot. I was just like, whoa.
I will say this, and this is one of the reasons why I haven't really revisited these, although in an infinite time scale in this show, eventually we'll cover some of these too, I'm sure.
We definitely should. We'll blush the whole time.
We should at least do Exit to Eden because we need to talk about that terrible Dan Aykroyd movie that they made.
God.
But the reason, honestly, why I've never felt compelled to revisit these is listen to us talk about a lot of the sexuality that does appear in Anne's novels. We don't really care for it that much very often. We like the sensuality and the relationships that connect Louis and Lestat and Armand and Louis and Marius and Lestat and all of the pairings that we get in these novels. We really enjoy that. But so often when she has unhealthy relationships with age gaps and incestuous relationships and these power dynamics that we don't really approve of or like or find titillating personally, I just imagine, I better pornography books are more of that, which I also probably don't care for, right?
Erotica.
I do know they're very heavily. Yes, you're right. It's not pornography; they're erotica. But I do know
they called it porn too.
I do know they are heavily BDSM, which is not my bag. Right? Yeah. So anyway, that is not an area that we can speak of, but I do think it's interesting that she basically gets all of that out in one little section of her career and only revisits it way later.
over the course of like 4 years. I'm done.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, one of the reasons I think why she didn't revisit it very often until much later in her career is because when all of that sort of wraps up, it's also the release of the Vampire Lestat. So she comes back to this world and writes the Vampire Lestat, releases it in 1985, and it is a significantly more of a success than Interview with the Vampire. But the real killer is the pre-talk and pre-sales for The Queen of the Damned that comes out in 1988. Christopher Rice talks about this openly and has talked about it often. The summer before The Queen of the Damned released, that's when their lives changed. When he went, oh, we've got lots of money now. Oh, okay. Things are different.
We got a little fuck you money now.
Stan he quit his job and took like a long sabbatical or something. They bought a house in New Orleans, the house that we're going to try to go by and see in the French Quarter in a week, and not in the French Quarter, in the Garden District in a couple of weeks, which, by the way, right before I started to record, Kelly said this and I went, no, that can't be right, but it is. She goes, tell Ashley hello. I'll see her in 2 weeks. And I went, we will. I'll see you in 2 weeks. Look at that.
I'm going to be in Disney in like a week and a half.
It's going to be so fun. Oh, man. I forgot about that. We've got a little work to do this weekend to get ahead. Okay. So this is when things blow up, though. That 85 to 88 timeline, Anne Rice becomes one of the most famous American writers, and suddenly she and her family are off on this trajectory. It's
she got nominated for a Bram Stoker Award for Queen of the Damned, too. So she's starting to get a little bit of that, like, at least in the horror genre, a little bit of, like, that kind of acclaim and attention she wanted.
Well, even if the critics didn't applaud the quality of her work yet, she was getting covered constantly at this point, right? Like everybody's writing about her new book in 85 and 88, and when she's writing The Body Thief in 92, and, you know, all of these books are hitting.
It's kind of crazy it took so long for a film adaptation to come together of Interview, to be honest. Like,
I think it is just such a complicated work for the time, especially with the cloud of AIDS, right? This work is inherently...
You're totally right.
It's inherently homosexual. And even all the way... Okay, so The Vampire Lestat comes out, The Queen of the Damned comes out. Those are both very popular, but it's still 88. Yeah. Like, the fact that it got made in 94, I think is still... pretty surprising, and it speaks to
kind of the height of the AIDS epidemic. Like,
it speaks to how big she was, you know.
Yeah, and I don't know. I don't know how. I mean, our listeners are a very wide age range, but some of you younger folks may not really realize, even if you're part of the LGBTQ community, may not realize exactly what the AIDS crisis was like, and the absolute pallor it put over things, and this stupid fucking fabricated fear that was completely incorrect, and it was just a really strange time where this fucking horribly infectious, deadly disease was hanging over everybody, and gay people were getting scapegoated about it hardcore. It was just so fucked up.
Okay, I had completely forgotten about this kid until just the other day, and I don't know, there was a story that popped up about it. Ryan White.
Yeah. He got it from a blood transfusion. He
was born in 1971, and he got it from a blood transfusion. He was a hemophiliac, and he was diagnosed in 84, was given 6 months to live. Doctors said he posed no risk to other students, as AIDS is not an airborne disease and spreads solely through bodily fluids, of course, but AIDS was poorly understood. Teachers were irate. Parents pulled their kids out of schools. It was such a big deal. But literally, like, we had to use this kid, this sweet little perfect angelic white kid. Yeah. We had to take him on TV shows and march him across America to be like, please don't run from your neighbors. Ashley, when I was growing up, there was a rumor that got started that some guy, this one guy that worked at the Burger King, the local Burger King, that he was HIV positive. Like, people would not go to Burger King. It's not, I'm genuinely, you're right. If you're younger than us, and you don't have to be that much younger than us to have missed this entirely.
You really don't. You really, really don't.
Anyway.
Because I would say by the time we were in college, Joel, HIV was treatable. You could keep your viral loads undetectable. Like, even by the time we were in college, I had a friend with HIV when we were in college. And so, like, it was completely treatable by then. But y'all, it was a fucking death sentence for about 10 years. And it was horrible.
Well, and even in that transition period when it was beginning to be at least somewhat treatable, or you could extend life, et cetera, it still was so misunderstood.
Oh,
and you know,
and purposefully used to, you know, attack the gay community, particularly gay men. It was just, it was.
But y'all, this is why I think Anne Rice and others like her became so beloved by that community.
Yes, 100%.
Because her work spoke to that othering, right? Her work spoke to the feeling of being other, and the feeling of, yes, the feeling of potentially being a danger just by your very existence to those around you, which was also something real for these people in the 80s and the early 90s, right? So
wild.
Anyway, all right, we got off on a bit of a tangent there, but this is the crux of her career. And like, I think it was Derek Steele that posted in the Facebook group, but somebody shared an image or a couple of images. There's a whole episode of the Ellen TV show where they all go to get her new book signed, right? Like, they go to see Anne Rice and she's got a cameo in the episode. That's how big Anne Rice was.
Yeah.
Like, we know Stephen King is that big in pop culture. Now, they made 4 Stephen King movies this year, right? But Anne Rice was that level of author, at least for a period of time in the 80s and the 90s, for sure.
Absolutely.
You know, 100 million plus books sold. Like, she did no slouch. And this is not a small community.
At that time, still made herself so accessible to her fans, which is just unbelievable.
Insanely
at that time,
so.
Stephen King used to make himself very accessible as well. He's a little less accessible now, but I don't blame him.
Well, every couple of weeks we get mad at him for something else on Twitter. So,
well, you know, he's Uncle Stevie.
So during this time, she's getting a lot of offers, and I had forgotten about some of them. She ends up writing quite a lot of TV work at different times. She wrote pilots and things. One of the things that she was shopping was a film that everybody kept turning down. It didn't work here, didn't work there. James Cameron was going to do it at one point. It ends up becoming a novel. She releases it in 1989 as The Mummy, or Ramses the Damned, which is interesting because, like the erotica, this happened so early in her career, and yet she waited all the way until the 20-teens to revisit it at all. And we'll get back there in a little while. But if we've talked about The Mummy, we did one episode on The Mummy, the original novel anyway.
It's a great book, y'all. So fun.
Now, that is a novel full of sex scenes that I can get behind, Ashley, both literally and figuratively. That's something read. I can poke at.
It's just an adventure too. It's got the same vibe as like Tale of the Body Thief does. You know, it's got that sort of like, we're going on an adventure vibe, you know? We're going to get into some shenanigans.
So she does The Mummy in 89. She does The Witching Hour in 1990, which she said she started writing in 88 when they moved into the house on First Street.
I can't believe it only took her 2 years to write that book.
I mean, when you think about that level of output, it's, you know, it's a 45-hour audiobook if you listen to it.
It's so much.
It is so much, but it is genuinely her love letter to New Orleans, right? And to that house that she had just moved into. Hang on a second. Let me see if my dog will calm down now. She's right on top of me. So we go 89, The Mummy, 90, The Witching Hour, and then in 90, 92, she writes Tale of the Body Thief. So I do think this is sort of her adventure phase in some ways. The Mummy and Tale of the Body Thief both very much have like an Indiana Jones globe-trotting adventure feel to them.
Yes, absolutely. You know? I love that. That's one of the things I love about those two books is that it's just, especially coming off of Queen of the Damned, which is just really fucking intense. It was nice to like slide right into Tale the Body Thief and have like kind of a like lower stakes. I mean, we're swapping bodies and there's all sorts of shenanigans, but it does not feel the stakes are quite as high as like every male in the world's going to be murdered.
She revisits her witches in 93 and 94 and wraps up the Lives of the Mayfair Witches with Lasher and Taltos, which in my head did not come so close together. Mm-hmm. But I guess that's because I basically didn't start reading any of these until sometime in 93. So by the time I had worked through the first 3 or 4 vampire novels, okay, there's 3 witch books for me to read too, and I hadn't really gotten there yet, I guess.
Yeah, I definitely was deep into the vampires before I fell into the witches, I would say.
Yeah. It makes sense, though, in retrospect, that Lasher and Taltos are so close together because they do very much tell like an ongoing story. You know, she had one story there and told it all out at one time. But again, I do think some of that adventurous, globe-trotting, you know, let's run over and find the MacGuffins sort of attitude continues through those books as well. It just has a lot more incest and age gap romance. Right. Absolutely. So, we're getting close here to 1998, where some shit goes awry. But first, we've got to get Memnoch the Devil out of the way. So this was such a bizarre novel. She doesn't go back to the church until 1998. She's been most of the time she calls herself an atheist, from about the time she's 17, 18 years old until 98.
It's really hard for me to think of her ever as an atheist, though.
Me too.
Because she believed in God too hard to not believe that God exists. I think she just got pissed at God.
Yeah, it was like she suddenly took her mom's maiden name instead of dad's name, right? Because she's mad at him or something.
Yes. That's the vibe. Mm-hmm.
Hang on just a second. Let me see if we can do something about this again. I don't know what she's doing.
Hey, the state fair might be coming by your house.
I know, right? This maybe it was the chainsaw in the front yard that we heard earlier.
It's real tempting not to run down there and grab a turkey leg. I'm not going to lie. I'll be going on Monday.
So she releases Memnoch the Devil in 95. And we've talked about this before. Yeah. Memnoch the Devil was the first one that I was there for day one.
Yeah,
same. I bought it at Sam's Club, I believe. Yeah, hardback copy.
Busted that bad boy open, smelled those pages, got to reading. I reviewed it for my high school newspaper.
Nice. Very nice. I did not. I do remember watching her interview with Charlie Rose, though, about it, where he asks her about, Lestat drinking Jesus's blood. And I don't think I had gotten there yet in the novel. I can't remember, honestly, when I saw that interview. But I remember all of the consternation, and it wasn't like, I don't remember any picket lines or anything like that. It wasn't like when, Last Temptation of Christ was in movie theaters or anything. But I do remember thinking, I'm going to have to not discuss this one very much with mom and dad, probably.
So, but all y'all pretend to drink it every Sunday. So what's the problem?
Well, I mean, I think that was her thought too. I think that's what she says on Charlie Rose even, is like, you got to remember, like, I was raised drinking the host every week.
I personally, I'm like, y'all started that. I don't know what to tell you. You started it. It was your idea, Catholics.
Realistically, if you decide in your story that I'm going to put Jesus and a vampire in the room together, you're going to have that vampire drink Jesus's blood. Yeah. Yeah, that's gonna happen.
Jesus is the foreshadowing himself.
For the record, spoiler alert, I've discussed it before, the last vampire series by Christopher Pike. Yeah, they drink Krishna's blood in that one too at some point. So, it happens. Okay. So she does Memnoch the Devil in 95. And then in 1998, she has this diabetic incident where she almost died. Oh, yeah. Turns out that she's got diabetes, and she's, for the rest of her life, insulin dependent. But I think that is the beginning. Well, and I know that is the beginning of her return to the church, because even before she had had her near-death experience or whatever, she had decided that for whatever reason, she was reopened to this idea of Catholicism, and she had refound her faith and reconnected. I don't know exactly what it was that brought her over. I've read her memoir that she wrote about it. Let me see, when did that come out? It comes out quite a bit later. That was in the early 2000s. It's called Called Out of Darkness. No, I can't find it. I'll have to look it up.
I can't find it either. I like that she does have a Catholic light attitude, because she still, supports gay rights, gay marriage, abortion.
So she goes from 98 until like 2010 before she decides that she's moving away from organized Christianity. And when she moved back away from the church, it was specifically because of the church's stance on LGBTQ people. But she says, I hold Christ near and dear, but I can't be part of an organized faith anymore at that point. And it's interesting because she had finally written the book, or she released the book, Called Out of Darkness, A Spiritual Confession is the name of that one. She released it in October of 2008. And it was, I'm fairly certain it was in 2010 when she made the announcement that she had left the church again. Yeah, 2010, she breaks from the church again in a public statement. I'm no longer going to call myself Christian, basically. But in that window of time, so from 98 to 2010, she's writing with this renewed Christian influence and focus. So she had a couple of, I think, contractual things that were maybe already mostly written before this turn that got out of the way first. She does The Vampire Armand in 1998.
Right.
She
Those
does
all
Pandora.
came out quick too.
Yeah. Okay. So for a minute, she made a deal with her publisher where she was going to release a full novel every fall and a shorter novel in the spring. And they were going to do 2 a year. So they did, I think she actually only did 3. Maybe she ended up doing 4 under that deal, but that deal did not last nearly as long as they had planned for it to last.
Yeah.
The Vampire Armand's in 98. Pandora is also in 98. And then Vittorio the Vampire comes out in 99. And by the time that by the time that Vittorio comes out, she's already rejoined the church. So then she writes Merrick, comes out in 2000, Blood and Gold in 2001, which I think is kind of a leftover of a piece with The Vampire Armand. Those are basically, sequel novels.
Well, it's kind of like the side by side of Vampire Lestat and Interview with a Vampire, the section that covers Louis and Lestat's lives. It's kind of, and you do get the Pandora backstory too.
But you'll notice who she's not spoken through in all this time.
Right.
Lestat has gone away. Lestat disappears at the end of Memnoch the Devil. He goes into a comatose status, basically, and we don't really see him again at all until the very end of Blood and Gold. He shows up for a minute, but then he's still kind of out of it. He shows up again at the end of The Vampire Armand, but he's still kind of out of it. Finally,
he's not
in
back
Blackwood,
to form.
No, he's not back to form at all until Blackwood Farm.
Yeah.
But that's still not in his voice. Now, Ashley and I have recently talked through Blackwood Farm. We did Merrick episodes, and we did Blood Canticle most recently, which is the Merrick, Blackwood Farm, and Blood Canticle form the crossover novels between the Mayfair Witches and the vampires.
And they happen in pretty quick succession of each other, too.
Yeah, time-wise, they're, as a matter of fact, Blackwood Farm and Blood Canticle are immediate sequels, and Merrick and Blackwood Farm take place, I think, within like 6 months of each other or something like that. So
it doesn't seem like very long.
Yeah, very, very close together. But as she's writing Blood Canticle, it is her intention to put Lestat away. She thinks she's done with that voice. She's done with these stories. And very specifically, she has dedicated her writing now to Christ. And that's her intention. And she makes that announcement at the end of she makes it through the book. We've talked about it. Lestat says, I dream of being a saint. I want a life-size statue of me in every church. I want to bring millions to the cause of Christ, et cetera, right? And so that's what Anne tries to do here. It's a weird phase of her career.
It is.
and the books suffer because of it, I think, honestly, because her heart's not in it in these last two books, I don't think, and they're very strange because of that.
Yeah.
Now I think she does some good writing in this next section. So what we get during the Christian phase is the two Christ the Lord books. So in 2005, she publishes Christ the Lord Out of Egypt. In 2008, she does Christ the Lord, The Road to Cana. Now, you've never read either one of those, right?
I've never read either of these.
Okay. I cannot recommend those enough, even for a non-Christian. The way that she portrays the young Christ, especially in the first one, Christ is like 11 years old for most of it. In the second one, it is literally ends at the wedding at Cana, where he begins his public ministry. He does the miracle of the water to wine, basically, to wrap up that second book. The idea was that she was going to write a third one called The Kingdom of Heaven, Christ the Lord, The Kingdom of Heaven, which would be about his final week. It would be the crucifixion, basically, or preceding the crucifixion. And she ended up not writing it in the end because she said, other people have told the story, first of all, but I also don't want to take my Christ there. Like the version that I have told here, I don't want to go crucify him. I'm just not really interested in it. Yeah.
All right. I respect that, actually.
They're both really sweet, honestly. The first one, Christ the Lord Out of Egypt, has been adapted into film. It's called The Young Messiah. I haven't seen the movie, but I've heard good things about it too. But I really like those Christ the Lord books. I like them a lot. I haven't read, however, the Songs of the Seraphim. So she wrote two angel novels, Angel Time in 2009 and Of Love and Evil in 2010. You haven't read the angel books either, I'm assuming.
I haven't. No. I don't know what happened during this time period. Well, I think I was probably busy and poor.
So, well, partly that, but also my guess is you were, because I know I was a little mad at her for leaving Lestat behind. Like,
yeah. Well, and like these, I'll be real, like those don't interest me as much. Like I'm not. Those aren't as interesting to me.
Those are strange books, I think, in that they're very different than the rest of her novels. I think they've got like a historical thing where they like take the main character from the modern day back in time and he does things or something in connection with his angel buddy. I think anyway, we'll get to those eventually, I'm sure, too, here on the show. Yeah.
It'll be a treat.
So I feel like I skipped a couple of where are her standalones in this list? Here we go. Okay, Servant of the Bones, I skipped. That one came out in 1996. So that one's actually the one that she is signing in the episode of Ellen that we mentioned, by the way.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah. I have read Servant of the Bones. It's a really good novel, as I recall. Although, and I think we've talked about this on the show, I wonder about the representation in that novel or the appropriation of culture, as the main character is of Jewish origin. He's a Hebrew, and it's a genie story. Effectively, he's cursed in some fashion and captured as a genie in the book.
Always interesting to think about going back and reading things like that with adult eyes.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Well, especially and our more culturally sensitive eyes, I should say.
Absolutely.
Too.
No, absolutely. Yeah.
She also wrote the standalone Violin in 1997. Christopher has said this is very much her most personal novel. We did a Charlie Rose interview once about this as well. I think you did the reaction to it. But she talks about the fact that she wanted to play the violin as a young girl and was no good at it.
Your trauma will lead to novels if you're a writer.
Right. So after Songs of the Seraphim, she wraps that last one up in 2010, and then she announces that she's leaving the church. But she still don't go back to my boy just yet. She can't.
No.
I wonder if it was pride, right? Like she had said she wasn't going to do it, and she was just going to stand by it. I don't know.
Could be. She was a little stubborn.
She wrote 2 werewolf books instead. She wrote The Wolf Gift in 2012 and The Wolves of Midwinter in 2013. The Wolves of Midwinter, by the way, apparently very much focused around Christmas. It's a Christmas novel in a lot of ways. I've never read either one of the Wolf Gift books either.
Maybe we should read the Christmas one for the holiday season.
you know what? That's not a bad idea. Actually, we won't have a show. We could do both the Wolf books back to back maybe and get that done. That would be an interesting run. I do think, and lots of people have speculated, I think it's entirely possible that AMC is going to sideways adapt some of that into their Immortal universe. Wolves have been mentioned a couple of times in Mayfair and in Talamasca, and I think while they don't own the rights to those books, it's possible they could option them, even though there's maybe, no, they don't have them. Christopher still has them, and Christopher has that ongoing deal with a different production company to make adaptations. A little bit of money, though, can make anything happen, right?
Yeah.
So I think it's possible.
A little bit of money.
Or a lot of money. Yeah, good call. A lot of bit of money. Or again, like the idea of werewolves isn't proprietary. So like you could change the names and not make it exactly these wolves and still include werewolves in your Immortal universe if you wanted to.
Yeah, they use completely unidentifiable witches for Mayfair, so...
So we're going to talk about now briefly a couple of 3 books here that Ashley's never read yet.
Never yet.
Prince Lestat and the Realms of Atlantis, and Blood Communion: A Tale of Prince Lestat. So in 2014, and God, Ashley, I cannot tell you how much I remember this. In 2014, she started teasing on her Facebook that she was gonna be on Christopher's podcast. And she'd been on Christopher's podcast before, but she was teasing this in a way as if, no, you really need to go and listen.
You really need to hear
really need to pay attention. I streamed it live that night, and I was so excited as she said, yes, finally I can tell you Lestat is coming back. I've got a new story of Lestat. He and the Coven are all ready. They've got some new tales for you. And that's the other thing she said. It's not just one story. I've got new tales for you. She had a new series that she was working on, clearly, and she was going to start to unfold it for us. It was, I mean, before we watched the first episode of this show, I think it's the most excited I've ever been about this series.
Yeah. The return. Finally.
Yes.
Finally.
And it was so satisfying, especially that first one to me, just tickled me in so many ways, and it opened up this whole new world. By the time Blood Communion was published in 2018, Anne had already passed away. I say that's not true. That's not true. I'm wrong on that. When did Anne pass away? Hang on. Now I've got to look it up.
Scroll. 2021, December 11th.
Yeah. We didn't know at the time that was going to be the last one. That's right. 2021. Yeah. In Rancho Mirage, California. But the ending of Blood Communion is an incredibly satisfactory period and exclamation point on this series, in a way that Blood Canticle never was, in a way that Memnock never was, in a way that Tale of the Body Thief wasn't, you know.
I'd have been real bummed if Blood Canticle had been the end of it.
Oof, it's such a mess. Now, what else did she do in this little period? She started a project with her son, Christopher Rice, who's a very successful author in his own right. We haven't talked about him much here, but he's been published a ton of times. He's written some erotica himself, by the way.
They've written things together?
Yep, that's right. They wrote a sequel to Ramses the Damned, The Mummy. It's called Ramses the Damned, The Passion of Cleopatra. That came out 2017. And then the final novel, Ramses the Damned, The Reign of Osiris, came out in 2022. That's the one that was published posthumously. I knew there was a novel that came out right after she passed. Yeah. It was Ramses the Damned, The Reign of Osiris. So I have read The Passion of Cleopatra. I still haven't read The Reign of Osiris yet. I think The Passion of Cleopatra was a good follow-up to Ramses, and I enjoyed her writing with Christopher.
I did too.
It was one of the reasons why, and you and I've talked about this before, back when the show was at Hulu, and even before it was at Hulu, you know, Anne and Christopher were working on this together as executive producers, and Christopher had written a pilot for this vampire show that they were going to do, and I felt confident with it being in his hands, honestly, because I felt like he had a good grasp of her voice and was working well with her, translating her voice in a way,
especially after reading that book that they wrote together. You know, it felt like, oh, well, we can get a very unified voice here.
So the timeline on this series is crazy. I had to go back and look at this. So in November 2016, she announces on Facebook that the rights to her novels had reverted to her despite earlier plans for other adaptations. I had to go back and look. Universal owned the rights for a couple of years, and then they never did anything with it. So Rice says that she and her son, Christopher, are going to be developing and executive producing a potential TV series based on the novels. In April of 2017, she teams up with Paramount and Anonymous Content to develop the series. In early 2018, Brian Fuller gets involved, and we got so excited because he had done Hannibal at that point that we all liked. And then on July 17th, 2018, she announces that the series is in development at Hulu and that Brian Fuller's not going to be on the project anymore. In December of 2019, Hulu's rights had expired, and Rice was shopping the package for all of her film and TV rights. And then finally, in May of 2020, it was announced that AMC had bought The Vampire Chronicles and The Lives of the Mayfair Witches. And again, Ashley and I were so burned out by the up and down at that point, we didn't do an episode about it. AMC announced it. We posted it on a Facebook about it, but we didn't do an episode of the podcast about it because we had already done one about the Hulu deal, and we're like, yeah, we'll believe it when it happens, whatever.
Well, we sound like such goofballs. We're like, oh, we're so excited. We can't wait. It's just
we were so sure that Hulu deal was going to work. And in retrospect, yeah, I'm glad that it didn't. It worked out better. I mean, genuinely, AMC gets the rights to the witches and the vampires, and the potential for that is great. That means that we get the Talamasca, because you have to realize if they hadn't bought the witch books, it's like a Marvel Spider-Man thing, right? Like you can't use the Kingpin then because you don't own Spider-Man, right?
God, Sony and fucking Sony, Disney, Sony, Marvel, fuck off. That was so annoying.
Yeah. So, Anne and Christopher were originally executive producers on that show as well. They still are in title, at least executive producers, but they left the project before it ever got up off the ground. And of course, we know that's now been adapted into Interview with the Vampire that premiered in 2022, Mayfair Witches in 2023. The Talamasca premieres this year in the end of October. And then The Vampire Lestat, which is the third season and forward of Interview with the Vampire, is going to premiere in 2026. Listen, Mayfair Witches was a mess. Talamasca, we don't know. Is it going to be perfect? I don't know.
We don't know.
Overall, I think this is still an amazing set of adaptations that we've gotten, and the future is still bright.
Season 3, The Vampire Lestat looks amazing. Y'all, I think
it really does,
way more than we expect, and it's going to be the gift that keeps on giving for a little while.
It's interesting. I know some of y'all are not readers at all. Some of you have just followed the TV shows. I hope you listened to this episode and kept up, because it's nice to watch the flow of her work and to get some idea of like where she was and why she was writing in this direction or that direction as she moved through these different phases. So that's what we wanted to do here a little bit tonight. Neither one of us are historians. Neither one of us have read every biography out there about her. I have read the Katherine Ramsland one, Prism of Night, I think is the name of that one.
I realized how woefully, like, how I don't know much about Anne's life except like the basics. And same thing with like Stephen King. I'm like, God, Ashley, you should read about your favorite authors, not just read them.
I will say that Katherine Ramsland, who was an Anne Rice historian and biographer, and she worked with Anne on the Vampire Companion and the Witch Companion.
And she spent 10 years interviewing BTK.
She also did the breakout story about the vampires in Ohio that we've talked about previously, like the real vampires.
She's a criminologist, a professor of criminology.
And she did write what I think is a pretty good biography of Anne, Prism of Night. I would suggest that to you if you're interested. I would also suggest, especially if you have any religious background yourself, Anne's religious memoir, Called Out of Darkness, is enjoyable and it's interesting. If you're a Stephen King fan and you heard that about Ashley mentioned just there, well, I don't know how much I know about Stephen King. Read On Writing.
On Writing. Oh.
It's not a biography exactly, although there is part of it that is biographical, right?
On Writing and Dance Macabre are both really, really great kind of reference books that he's written. And they do have some insight into his life for sure. But On Writing is one of the best things I've ever read. It's really got great advice for writers in it and a lot of his philosophy and all of that. It's wonderful.
What is the David Mamet book that everybody used to be all about? You know what I'm talking about.
Handbook, Practical Handbook for the Actor.
Yes. Okay. On Writing is for writers and would-be writers what Practical Handbook for the Actor wants to be. Okay.
Yes,
I used to be shoved up David Mamet's nose quite a bit when I was a young actor.
Well, as a woman, I try to stay out of his ass.
David Mamet is so full of shit in so many ways. That book is still decent reading, though, I will say.
It is great.
It's just well put together.
It was
and
it
On
was
Writing,
used in one of my acting classes.
On Writing is that, but good. The advice is good. Like it's so good. It's so and it's enjoyable to read. I think that's a better book than Called Out of Darkness, but Called Out of Darkness is also very interesting and incredibly insightful if you want to know more about Anne the person. So there you go, folks. There's a little unpacking of Anne. Let's talk about what's on dock, or on deck, I should say, quickly. On dock is where Anne's family lived. On deck, next week, we're going to talk about tier listing the vampires, Ashley.
This is going to get...
I'm super excited about this.
Exciting. I'm very pumped.
So if you've never done a tier list, if you don't know what a tier list is, it's very popular in the video game world. So we make categories like rankings, A, B, C, D, E, maybe S tier or whatever above the A, right? And then we put our vampires in it. I'm going to make up a list, probably 20, 25, maybe 30 vampires. And that's what was going to be our list. We'll slot those all in, see how long that takes us next week. So that's next week. After that, we've got Talamasca. We've got Talamasca episode 1 and 2 coming on the 26th. And then the week after that, you're going to have so much fucking content. You're going to get Talamasca episode 3. And you're going to get our live stream from New Orleans discussing the celebration of life and
we
all
might
of our
go
fun
live in the Facebook
shenanigans.
Group at any time.
Probably going to go live a
Orleans.
few times while we're down there too. Yeah. So even if you can't join us in New Orleans, you're going to have lots of fun. So stay tuned in all the places. Hey, I want to say a quick thank you. And I don't have my Instagram in front of me, but somebody messaged me on Instagram yesterday or this morning, sometime this week, to say, hey, Joel, what happened to the audio for last episode of the podcast? It never went out. It was only on YouTube. Ashley, I just forgot to put it up. I just forgot to put it up all week. And only one person told me. So I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I did go put it up though today. So it's there as we're recording this.
You don't have to look at our faces if you don't want
I guess everybody was like, Joel's tired this week. I'll just go watch it on YouTube. It's fine. Don't worry.
It's been a week.
All right. Thanks, everybody. Thank you especially to our patrons, even the ones who love Taylor Swift, for sticking with us.
Please and thank you. We love you all.
And until we talk to you again, we have been your hosts. I am Joel.
I'm Ashley.
And we are the Articulate Coven. Thank you for sharing this time with the Articulate Coven. Support the show as either a free or paid member at articulatecoven.com/join. You can also find us on YouTube, Spotify, and wherever you listen to podcasts. Find more from the Coven with our sister show, Flan Again, covering the works of Mike Flanagan.